We've got some breaking news here. News we've been waiting for over 4 years. And what you're about to find out is going to shock you to the core. It turns out the FBI had every clue they needed to catch a terrorist, and they did absolutely nothing until now. Just hours ago, FBI agents swarmed a quiet Virginia neighborhood just 20 miles from D.C., where it was announced that they arrested the man they believe planted 2 viable pipe bombs outside the headquarters of both major political parties, bombs that could have killed innocent Americans. The suspect is a 30-year-old male by the name of Brian Cole Jr., a man with alleged anarchist ties who's been living freely this entire time while the Biden administration's FBI was too busy raiding pro-life grandmothers and targeting parents at school board meetings. And here's what's infuriating. They didn't need new evidence to catch this guy. They didn't need a new tip. As always, we just needed a new president. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed it herself. This arrest happened because the Trump administration made it a priority.
This cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Pirro and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years. Let me be clear, there was no new tip, there was no new witness, just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, working as a team along with ATF, Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, and of course, the FBI.
On the night of January 5th, 2021, a hooded figure walked through Capitol Hill carrying a backpack. At 7:54 p.m., he placed a homemade bomb outside the DNC. 22 minutes later, another one outside the RNC. Now, these weren't fake devices. The FBI has confirmed they are viable bombs constructed from galvanized pipes, kitchen timers, and homemade black powder. And here's the detail that should make your blood boil. These bombs sat there for 15 hours before anyone found them. It's one of the reasons why so many believe this was an inside job. Despite Secret Service and federal agents supposedly scouring through these neighborhoods and city streets to pre-screen security the day before the J6 protest, drawing hundreds of thousands, somehow they completely overlooked both devices. The Secret Service never found them. They only discovered the bombs as a Capitol chaos was already unfolding the next day, diverting critical law enforcement resources away from the Capitol building. Again, another rather odd detail in all of this. Now, as Pam Bondi made clear, 4 years, the FBI had surveillance footage. They had cell phone tower data. They conducted over 1,000 interviews. They even were able to identify the perpetrator's shoe print in the snow and determine it was made by Nike Air Max Speed Turfs. And they were able then to subpoena credit card records from Foot Locker and other chains as they worked to narrow down potential buyers, even narrowing down the size of the shoe. And for 4 years under Biden, nothing. Not with all those leads, with all that data, nothing. So then Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they take over at the FBI. And within months, Bongino announced that they were taking a fresh look at the case. They brought in new personnel. They flew in detectives as task force officers. They conducted internal evaluations. They reran every lead. And what did they find? It turns out the evidence was sitting there right in front of them the entire time. Law enforcement sources are now admitting this suspect could have been arrested years ago if investigators had simply connected the dots. Now think about that. A domestic terrorist walking free for almost half a decade, not because catching him was impossible, but because the previous FBI leadership frankly didn't appear to want to catch him. Now, in terms of who this guy is, the suspect, Brian Cole, thus far, authorities have really not released a lot of details. He was arrested in Northern Virginia, where he reportedly resides. And as of the making of this video, authorities have not yet released additional details about the suspect, including his age or specific background. I'm sure we'll be finding out those details in the hours ahead. But the much, much deeper question in all of this is, why did the Biden administration so obviously drop the ball? Why did the FBI fail so miserably in this case? I mean, after all, this is clearly yet another win for the Trump administration, is it not? In fact, the last 12 months have been an absolute nightmare for the left. President Trump and the MAGA movement have delivered blow after blow to the Democrats. But if you notice, now they seem to be rallying around this new theme of affordability, inspired by Zoran Mamdani's election. And so we're seeing this narrative pervade among the left-wing media, the legacy media. They're just mouthpieces for the Democrats. In the last few weeks, it seems like every other headline has the word affordability in it. But, gang, is it really true? I mean, the fact is that after inheriting the worst inflation crisis in 40 years from Sleepy Joe and the Democrats, the Trump administration's actions to unleash American energy, slash regulations, crush inflation are translating into some of the lowest gas prices in the last 4 years. Not only are gas prices down, but wages are up. And we added nearly 120,000 new jobs to the American economy, which have mostly gone to native-born Americans. In fact, the jobs increase beat all 67 forecasts in Bloomberg's survey. And the stock market, it keeps hitting all-time highs. Absolutely incredible stuff. Trump is reshaping the entire economy. The only question is, will you be an active participant, or are you going to be sitting on the sidelines watching everyone else build wealth? This is exactly why I am so excited that our good friend Mark Wilburn of Neos Capital has agreed to host a special live training for patriots like you and me who want to learn what's really going on with the markets and how to profit from it. He's hosting 2 live online events, one on Thursday afternoon, December 11th, and another on Saturday morning, December 13th. Mark is a stock market whiz and a great teacher with an amazing track record. In fact, I think he's won like 8 out of every 10 trades they placed this year, and he's going to share his secret sauce that allows him to do just that. So click the link below or scan the QR code now to reserve your spot. Again, it's on Thursday, December 11th, Saturday, December 13th. Mark regularly charges over $200 for this type of training, but as a personal favor to Turley Talks listeners, he's agreed to do these at no charge. So go to freeturleyticket.com. It's all one word, freeturleyticket.com right now to secure your spot. It's an exciting time to be an American, and it's time to take bold moves to build the legacy we want for our families. Go to freeturleyticket.com right now to reserve your spot. A congressional report released back in January found that the FBI initially gathered a promising collection of data and identified numerous persons of interest in the early weeks of the investigation of the bomber. However, it was soon discovered that resources were subsequently redirected, resulting in, quote, minimal, meaningful advancement toward apprehending the suspect. It turns out that the initial investigation had essentially stalled by the end of February of 2021, less than 2 months after the incident. Now, why did this investigation stall? Because the FBI deprioritized the pipe bomb case in favor of pouring enormous resources into prosecuting J6 rioters whose faces were clearly visible on camera, cases that served the political narrative of the Biden administration that this was an insurrection. The Bureau had conducted over 1,000 interviews. They reviewed 39,000 video files related to the pipe bombs, yet they couldn't identify a single suspect whose movements they had mapped out in detail. Meanwhile, they prosecuted hundreds of J6 participants with far less evidence, all in the name of the Biden administration's penchant for weaponizing the law against their political enemies. Perhaps most damning, as we noted earlier, the breakthrough that led to Brian Cole's arrest didn't come from a shred of new evidence. Law enforcement sources confirmed the evidence needed to make an arrest was literally sitting on their desks. What happened, and this is according to investigative reporter John Solomon, is that approximately 6 weeks ago, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel made a very critical decision. They removed the original agents from the case, and they assembled an entirely new team. Despite initial resistance from FBI veterans who resisted the change, the fresh team applied new ideas, they applied new technologies, and most importantly, they applied fresh eyes to evidence that had been sitting right in front of them for years, and bingo. Or maybe I should say Dan Bongino. Oh, that was so bad. You know what I mean. They made the connections that led to the suspect. So whether this was deliberate suppression or bureaucratic negligence under Biden, or both, the result was the same. A domestic terrorist walked free for nearly 5 years. Now, John Solomon is reporting that there are clearly ongoing deep state dynamics within the Bureau, no question. Definitely some deep state corruption remains for sure. But, and this is really cool, he's also reporting that that resistance is diminishing as success breeds trust among the larger cohort at the FBI. So early skeptics who dismiss someone like Dan Bongino as just another talking head or whatever, they're now recognizing that the new approach that he and Kash are bringing to the Bureau is getting bad guys off the street, and we're seeing some pretty impressive investigative results. Now, obviously, the investigation is not over. FBI officials are stressing that in many ways. The arrest of this suspect is just the beginning. Investigators still need to determine the suspect's ideology, the motives, and whether conspirators were involved. But this case clearly demonstrates President Trump's directive to break glass at the FBI and the results that follow when leadership prioritizes solving crimes over institutional inertia. So we'll be keeping a very, very close eye on how things develop in the days ahead. But as of now, chalk up what looks to be yet another win for the Trump administration. The true adults are back in charge.